The last 8 months since I turned 20 has been the most transformative period of my life. I moved out and started living on my own, started building an audience online, achieved a decent level of clarity with the problem I'm trying to solve, and made good progress. But I've also made a ton of mistakes that I wish somebody had corrected me in the years prior. And in this video, I want to share with you 5 lessons that I just learned too late that cost me a lot of wasted time, effort, and resources. The first lesson has to do with comparison. I still have a very vivid memory of times where I would start my day and I would be very productive. I'll be doing the things I felt like I was supposed to be doing at that time and be making good progress. But at some point during my day, I would see somebody else that was doing much better than myself. And the funniest part about all of this is that the people that I was looking at as people that were years older than me, right? Sometimes even almost a decade older than myself. And obviously they would have more results because they've been doing those things for much longer than I have. And I'll see these people and all of a sudden it will trigger this pattern of starting to rethink my own path, rethink my own journey, and feel like I was way behind where I was supposed to be and I didn't have the results that I was supposed to have at that time. And recently I was just thinking back to those times and I noticed that it's been a very long time since I felt that I would see somebody else and feel that feeling of I should be ahead of where I am now, or maybe not that, because I still feel that to a bit, like a small extent, but looking at them and feeling like I should be where they are, or wondering why I don't have the things that they have. And I think the reason for that is because in the last 8 months to a year, most of my energy, most of my brain power, most of my time has literally just been spent on obsessing over my own path. I'm thinking constantly about my own journey. I'm thinking about what I'm doing. I'm thinking about how it leads to where I'm trying to go. I'm thinking about what vehicle is going to take me to where I'm supposed to go, what characteristics or features that vehicle is supposed to have. And literally by just obsessing over my own path and obsessing over the things I have going on for myself, I found that I don't have as much energy, as much time, as much headspace to compare myself with other people, and I'm genuinely just focused on my own path. Now, I don't know if that's a form of avoidance, because in some sense you could argue that I haven't really dealt with that problem of comparison, but it has helped a lot, and I've noticed that I just spend most of my time focused on my own journey and worrying about my own path versus looking at other people. And in the process of doing that, focusing on my own path and my own journey, I've also noticed that a lot of those things that I used to look at in other people and compare myself and be like, oh, I should have that results that they have. In the process of just focusing on my own journey and making progress with my own path, I've noticed that now I've gotten a lot of those things that I didn't have then, and I was super obsessed and worried about that I didn't have. So that's the first lesson, which is the key that I found is to obsess over your own path. If you want to stop comparing yourself to other people, obsess over your own path. The second lesson is a quote that I read not too long ago that blew my mind. It says, a path is created by walking. It doesn't just appear, you have to move. Now, if you asked me about this a couple weeks ago, a week ago even, I would have said 100% absolutely I have internalized this lesson. But even up until a couple days ago, I still had to be reminded about this. And I believe that there's a tendency for us when we're searching for clarity, we're finding answers. What am I supposed to be doing? What's the goal of this thing? Why am I even doing this in the first place? What path am I supposed to take? There's a tendency to be stationary, to remain in one place and wait for those answers to come before then continuing to move, hoping that we get the clarity first before we continue to move. And that is just not the way life works. A lot of the times the answers that we're searching for comes, the clarity that you're looking for comes from being in motion. It is only by moving and by making progress with the things that you currently have in front of you, usually, that you would find the answers and the instructions and the things that you're looking for to move forward and to get to your destination eventually. An analogy that I think covers this perfectly is driving at night with your headlamps on, for example. Let's say you're moving from Lekki Phase 1 to Victoria Island. It would be very stupid of me at point A to be worrying about what is 5 blocks ahead, because frankly, I cannot see what is 5 blocks ahead. The best thing I can do is use the information that my headlamp is giving me right now to move forward, and by moving forward, I would eventually see what is next. And by doing that over and over and over again, I eventually get to the destination that I'm looking for. So the point here is that the way to find clarity is not by being stationary or by making progress practice with the information that I have available to me at the time, and then I would get to my destination eventually. The third lesson I'm learning is that it is going to take time. This one is very funny to me because it is a lesson that I'm actively learning as I'm speaking to you. The more time I've spent thinking about where I am currently, where I'm trying to get to, and the things that would need to be in place for me to eventually get to where I'm trying to get to, the more I realize that it is going to take a lot of time. And I feel like now more than ever, I'm beginning to understand that quote that says Rome wasn't built in a day, because frankly, it just takes a lot of time. There are a lot of lessons that will need to be learned. There's a lot of mistakes that would need to be made. There's a lot of iteration that would need to happen to eventually get to where you're trying to get to. So it only makes sense that we need to find a way to enjoy that process of getting to where you're trying to get to. I think one of the ways that you can enjoy the process is, first of all, by selecting a game that excites you, by doing something, by working on something that you get energy from and that you like to do. I think for the most part, I have that on lock, but the aspect that gives me a lot of trouble is putting a lot of pressure on myself. And the framing that I'm trying to adopt now, the way that I'm trying to think about it now, is to really understand that if I'm going to be doing this thing for years to come, it doesn't make sense for me to put a lot of pressure on myself for one tiny segment in that entire time frame that I'm going to be doing that thing for. So essentially, just like reduce the stakes. Worst case scenario is that I make a mistake and it doesn't work out well, and then I eventually learn from it and use that in the next iteration that I'm going to do, and then that next iteration is going to be better than the current one, and then I just keep doing that over and over and over again. So in the grand scheme of things, it's not as deep as I tend to, frame it in my mind and position it in my mind. So reduce the stakes, essentially, is not that deep. So the lesson here is that it's going to take a lot of time. Find a way to enjoy the process and reduce the stakes. The fourth lesson is stick-to-itiveness. I believe that's actually a word, and it means the ability of a person to stick to something for a really long period of time. There's two phases when it comes to figuring out what you want to do. There's the experimentation phase and then the specialization phase. The experimentation phase is where you're trying to figure out what makes you happy, what you have affinity for, what you're passionate about, what you enjoy to do. And in that phase, one of the major characteristics or traits that you need to possess is the ability to dabble. You try something, do you like it, do you not like it? If you don't, you move to another thing. If you don't like that, you move to another thing. Essentially, trying different things to try to figure out what you enjoy to do, what catches your fancy, if you will. Then there's the second phase, which is where you figure out the things that you want to do, that you like to do, and then you're developing expertise and depth in that area or in those couple of areas that you really want to, specialize in, essentially. Now, one of the mistakes and one of the things that I've done wrongly that I frankly regret, and I'll make an entirely different video about this, but one of the regrets that I have is transitioning from the experimentation phase to the specialization phase, but still having the mindset of somebody in the experimentation phase. Like I said, one of the core characteristics of somebody in the experimentation phase is dabbling. It's very easy to give up. Like, you try something, it's not working out, you don't feel like this is enjoyable, you don't want to continue doing it, you give up and you move to another thing. And I feel like I have graduated from the experimentation phase at this point a couple years ago, like a year, 2 years ago. Since I was like 15, I've been trying a bunch of things. I've tried almost everything you can mention, and I found the things that I enjoy to do. One of the things I enjoy to do is making videos, building an audience. Another thing I enjoy is like entrepreneurship in general. But then I've transitioned to the specialization phase, right? But I've still carried that mindset of dabbling in different things, and if something gets too hard, I give up and I stop and I move to another thing and try it, but then within the same circles of entrepreneurship and then brand building. And this is something that my mentor had to remind me of yesterday. It was basically like scolding, right? He mentioned that one of the things that I've done really well is self-supervision, having a couple of traits that are necessary for success, but one of them that I've struggled with and that I frankly do not have is stick-to-itiveness, which is the ability to stick with something and see it through despite the unpleasant phases and despite the times where things are not working out the way that you would want them to work out. And I'm not sure what the lesson is here, but I guess what I'm trying to say is that one of the things that I'm learning now, or one of the things that I want to actively try to do moving forward, is to shed that mindset of dabbling and giving up when something gets tough and trying different things, which served me in the experimentation phase, but then adopting the mindset of developing stick-to-itiveness and being able to stick with something for a very long period of time, because frankly, that's the only way you're going to see results, by developing depth and by sticking to things for a very long period of time. So I'm not sure what exactly the lesson is here, but I hope that helps. The final lesson number 5, is that feelings are fleeting. Now, before I get into this lesson, I want to let you know that I have a newsletter that I send find out, and I journal these experiences that I'm facing in real time, journal the lessons that I'm learning from them in real time. So if you're interested in getting that, check the first link in the description to sign up to my newsletter. It is completely free. Now back to the lesson, which is that feelings are fleeting. One of the things that I have noticed over the past 8 months is that if you are actively obsessing over your path and you're actively thinking about what you want to do and how you're going to do it, one of the things that comes as a byproduct of that is simply roller coaster feelings. There are many times where at the beginning of the day I feel pumped, I feel on track, I feel like everything makes sense and I'm doing exactly what I'm supposed to be doing. But then by afternoon I'm like, damn, what am I doing? I feel like absolute shit and nothing is working out. I'm not enjoying anything. I feel like I'm doing the wrong things. And then by evening, I'm feeling on track again. I feel productive. I feel like, yes, I have clarity. I know what I'm supposed to be doing. Then the next morning I wake up and then everything is back to like rubbish again. This is something that I've noticed to occur, and I've noticed also that it is not myself alone. Most likely if you're watching this video, this is something that you've experienced yourself also. And back in the days before, I used to put a lot of weight on that feeling. When I feel bad and I feel like things are not working out and I feel like I'm not supposed to be doing this, I would eventually make a decision based off of that feeling and stop something that I'm supposed to be doing, which goes back to, the lesson that I was mentioning before where I didn't have stick-to-itiveness. Because of a feeling that I was feeling at that moment, I would make a decision which I would eventually come to regret because that feeling in itself is fleeting. So the lesson I guess from here is that don't make decisions based off of those feelings in those moments where things are not working out, right? Where you feel like you should be doing something else or like this is not working out. Don't make a decision that you would eventually end up regretting. Don't stop something abruptly. Don't just decide and do a 180, at some points because you feel like, you're not doing what you should be doing or things are not working out the way you want them to. Now, this particular point begs another question, which is at what point do you rely on your feelings? And I don't have the complete answer to this, but the way I personally am doing it, I'm going about it right now, and what I found to work is that when a feeling is constant and has been lingering for a very long period of time, then I put weight on it and I figure out what I need to do differently to change that feeling. For example, I filmed a video a couple months ago about direction with my brand. I'm not going to get into the details, but I filmed a video a couple months ago and I noticed that what I was saying in that video was very similar to what I was feeling in the moment while watching the video over the space of like a couple of months. Then in those cases, I feel more confident making a decision off of that feeling. But usually if it is just something that I feel a morning I woke up or something is not working out, I'm stressed and then I feel like things are not working out and everything is upside down, I'm trying not to make decisions off of that or make life-changing decisions, stop something I'm doing because of that feeling that I'm feeling in that moment. So I guess that's the lesson. Feelings are fleeting, and the only times that I pay attention to those feelings, right, is when they linger for a very long period of time. That's the final lesson. Those are the 5 lessons that I wish somebody told me. There's a lot more lessons that I'll continue to share in real time in my newsletter and on this channel. So if this is the type of stuff that you like, please sign up to the newsletter, subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you in my next video. Peace.